Welcome to the Cartoonist Kayfabe ringside seats in our Kickstarter Kickstart. No reason to kickstart this Kickstart as it's already blasted past its main goal and is ripping towards the first of many stretch goals. So get in now while you can. The link's going to be in the comments. And we are joined today by two prolific creators. One, a Britpop bass player for the band Cud, a writer and editor. The other, a legendary comic creator you know from Kill Your Boyfriend, Tank Girl, and Eve Stranger. Together, they take on one of Earth's mightiest challenges, fusing comics and music together to show the pint-soaked, rough and tumble underbelly of launching into the music biz. They previously teamed for Cud, Rich and Strange for the Black Crown, and now GEEZER 2 is at the center of their collab, a musician and an artist together. So first, I want to talk about how did you guys meet? How did Philip, you become a fan of Cud? And then when did you guys first think about comic creating together? Boom.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Where do we start?
I'll tell you where. Philip,
yeah, go on.
We met Odyssey Comics in Leeds.
Right.
I lived in Leeds when I was in the band. Loved comics, and used to hang out with a few other comic people there. Duncan Fagredo, you may have heard of.
Of course.
Well, he was a friend who was on the college course, and he said he was going down to Odyssey for this signing for Deadline comic, which was
these young upstarts.
Yeah. So there's Philip there. There's Jamie Hewlett. Anyone else? I'm not sure. Maybe Brett Ewins, I'm not sure. Anyway, I went down with Duncan and he introduced me, and they turned out to have heard of my band, Cud. And so we stayed in touch, and every time Cud went down to Brighton to play gigs, because we never really played Worthing, I'd pop over to Worthing and see them there and hang out with them. And eventually Cud got invited to play Deadline's first anniversary party. And as a result, I persuaded the editor to accept some of my work. So I became a comic person as well, and you know, we've stayed in touch on and off ever since then as comic creators and the music.
Nice.
Did you get that story right?
I couldn't have pinned it down to an exact store and a signing and where, but yes, this all makes sense. Yeah, we knew Cud from like a while before that. I remember sort of requesting Cud at the local dance hall in Worthing a few times at the Crazy Daisy, at the Crazy Karaoke. And I don't know if did Cud actually play at the karaoke? I'm not sure.
No, I don't think we ever. I'm not sure we ever played Worthing.
Yeah, but I remember I don't think
there was a venue enough for us.
No. It was actually quite soon after that I'd moved up to Nottingham, which was closer to Cud's base of operations. So I saw Cud quite a few times around that area, around that time. When in the early Deadline days, yeah.
I even saw a video. It said it was Cud's first performance, and the drummer was wearing a Judge Dredd tee. So I was like, "This has got comics soaked in it from the beginning."
Yeah, there's a video of me with a self-painted. I painted a martial law T-shirt when I was at college, and I wore that for a TV show, and I ended up being commissioned to make another one for a friend. Yeah.
Nice.
Your first real comics work.
Yeah. Quids in. I think I got £5 or something.
Nice.
So then when did the idea for GEEZER come in? Was it just kind of like we've got all these, band stories, or we just wanted something to work together? Or can you speak to how it all got started?
I think really that would be the editor that brought the whole thing together, wasn't it? Will?
Yes. Shelley has retained an obsession with Britpop.
This is in fact mine and Will's last two projects were brought about in secret beforehand by Shelley, who sort of put the whole thing together before really sort of like reaching out to either of us.
Yes,
And it just
That's amazing.
and both of them were just perfect matches. They're really cool. They're really nice.
Yeah,
matches.
Shelley said she'd love to do something about Britpop, so I pitched this idea about a band who existed in that world, but everyone had forgotten about. So they're there with real people. They go through real events. And I did my research. I have behind me several biogs and books from the period. I did a whole timeline and fitted GEEZER into it. So they hit the marks. They're at the pubs when Graham Coxon and Liam Gallagher faced off in the Good Mixer in Camden. They were there at the Brit Awards. What's that noise?
It's the fury of the Britpop fans.
I pitched this idea of a band of also rans for Britpop, and then Shelley had the perfect artist for it already lined up.
I really do feel like go ahead, Philip. Sorry.
I can kind of I see why Shelley had held it back from me for a while. I think like Shelley and Will were working on it together before bringing it up to me, because I think Shelley knows how much I hate Britpop, basically. So I was like, am I the perfect artist for this? Or I don't trust that scene.
Well,
don't trust it from personal experience.
Yeah,
Philip's the perfect artist for this because he's great at kind of like cartoon realism, really. Putting people in a real setting. He was there during that period as well, so he knows a lot of the venues, knows a lot of the people personally. So even if he'll not like all of the bands from that period, he will know the setting perfectly well and be able to make fun of it in the same way that hopefully the words do as well.
Yes, and populate the world with like the same feelings that like you were getting at the time, having lived it, I guess.
Yes, certainly for me in my band Cud, we finished about 1995, so we collided with Britpop. We missed out in a way, rather sadly. The press tried to generate a scene called Lion Pop before Britpop, which was loads of British bands against that kind of movement of grunge that was coming from the States. So they put us with the Suede, the Auteurs, Denim, Saint Etienne, and tried to create a movement of like a very British pop music. It didn't take off. They obviously got the wrong name for it, and then they came up with Britpop.
Yeah,
we weren't invited back for that one.
Yeah, I wondered where that name came from because it doesn't seem to like fit, but it was just a journalist probably popping it in there.
Yeah,
entirely.
Yeah, it includes Stuart McConey, a journalist who was on Select magazine and the NME. He claims to have come up with it, but it's quite an old term for British pop music. But it kind of stuck, and then basically any band that was music inspired by the Kinks or the Beatles and dressed the part and was not kind of American rock sounding, just got lumped into that or deliberately jumped into that scene to benefit from all the exposure.
Yeah. Well, now you said you were done around 95, but did you also do a US tour? And then is that part of the stories that brought along the stories for Issue?
Yes, obviously a lot of my experiences being in a band and being messed around by record companies and being facing competition from other bands, minor jealousies, the bad management, all of this poured into GEEZER. And yes, we did have an American tour, and issue 2 of GEEZER does have an American tour as the key story. And yeah, our experience is not exactly the same, but it wasn't very good. It was just one of those things where they fly you over and meet and greet the record company. And an example of it is where you play in a bar, and all of the music industry people are in the room next door watching the gig on a monitor because it's too loud and they want to talk. And so it's like it was kind of pointless. And we were promised an invite to come back and do a proper road tour, from east to west coast, and it never happened. And they never released our next album in the States. So it's like all of these kind of things, and the kind of record company people you meet over there. Some of them are nice and really helpful, and a lot just don't understand where you're coming from. What is this British music? What is it?
So a lot of these
humor.
A lot of these people appear in the second issue then, but are like any of them really based on real people that Cud ran into?
Yes.
Because if they are, you didn't send any photos. You just vaguely described this.
There's a guy who, the American record company guy, is based on my experience of the head of publishing in the UK, who is now one of the most important people, if not the boss of Universal Music. So he's like major millionaire kind of character. And my experience of him is where he didn't even face us in the meeting. He just stood away, stared out the window, and was whacking a rubber ruler on a desk, just tapping out time. And it's like, he's like, you think like he hadn't heard of us. He didn't know what our music was about. So he was just there because he met everybody. Wow. So yeah, another thing I'll mention about this American tour thing is also based on the experience of Blur, which was one of the things which inspired Britpop. After their first album, they went over to the States and did a terrible tour of the States where no one seemed to get them at all. Grunge had just hit, and who were these wankers from the UK who didn't really make much effort and just got drunk. And they just got more and more drunk and more kind of got lost and fed up with the whole thing. And then came back to the UK and said, like, basically, sod the States. Let's just focus on what we know and care about, which is, our British heritage and, British influences. And let's not try to make an album that we can sell to the States. And they did that with what was Modern Life is Rubbish, and then Park Life, and became huge. It became, the start of what was Britpop. Yeah. So a little bit of that is in GEEZER as well.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So not just entertaining, not just entertainment, but you've learned something. This is our entire mission. We want to help people understand what went wrong with British music and what could go right. Yeah.
A lot of it, obviously, from a lot of experiences of the band from the period come in and are given to GEEZER, so they live through it. Whether or not it was, just bad reviews, bad album experiences, changing the style they did to succeed in the business, dodgy videos, all these little things that other bands from the period will hopefully recognize. And certainly we've had some feedback from genuine Britpop bands that said, this seems very familiar.
It seems like this would be a very popular book with bands, like in the van, to read, to pass the time. I mean,
I hope so. I hope so. But like Spinal Tap, with just on
everyone's tour bus. It's like built in.
Exactly.
I guess I'm wondering mostly about your guys' collaborative method. Will writes, Philip is the artist, inker and penciler. So how does the separation of work go down there? Do you guys share a script? And when does it go?
Well, the script goes to Shay, and she'll give me her input. But I provide lots of reference material for specific venues and bands and describe characters. But then really it's like left to Philip, and Philip has, added panels, shuffled things around. And the look of the characters is completely Philip. And, I've not had to question any of them. They've all been like, amazing. This character is just perfect.
You can question if you want.
I don't need to. I'm very happy with it. So it's just been a really happy process, really.
It's been like really sort of pretty simple. Like Will's been, I mean, we'll talk about things beforehand, and I know he talks about things a lot with Jelly, and there's a lot of work goes into the scripts before I really even see them. So that's where there's a lot of work. But from what I've had, everything is just like almost like just perfect for the page. You know, there are very few things that I'm changing. It's mostly because of the format. The format's a little strange, it being a square page, and it's like really sort of seems. I think, and Will is coming from a sort of from British comics, which tend to be like larger format. So there tends to be a lot of script on a page. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's like part of what. You know, it's part of what GEEZER is. It's all about sort of like a bunch of characters moving from like one event and one like amazing scene to another, and like everything has to be sort of like laid out clearly, I guess. So there's a shitload of work going into it, just really because you're dealing with like a lot of characters on the page at the same time, so you end up with a panel that's like sort of like 3 inches square, and like everyone needs to have something to say in it. And
this is just like band interviews where you've got every member of the band wants to answer the question.
Yeah.
You know, and then when the interview comes back, they want to make sure that they got quoted.
Philip, when you're working at this size, do you or what size do you work at? Like, is this blown up or something?
No, I'm working digitally, so it's kind of like hard to tell sometimes what size you're really working on. But I think I'm working on sort of, it's the original art is probably around 10 inches square, so it's a little bigger than the finished size. And I know we've talked a few times about sort of doing a really nice big sort of like 12-inch version. So the art would be like just slightly larger than the size it was drawn. And so we could like really sort of see a lot more of it when
you can add pimples to the singles. You can add some pimples to the
singles. Oh, this will be like the high def version. Yeah.
Oh man, it's just so enjoyable to look at. Like what else goes into it? Like, because this comic is not only like a comic, there's also, now this might be Shelley again, but there's like, you know, words, and there's, you know, deadline style articles, and it's got that, I mean, I feel like it's got a deadline type of feel where it's like not just a comic, it's like a music publication.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all those backup features, actually, I might take the credit for them. I wanted to you know, include more material. We, you know, obviously that I'd be very happy if it was all comic, but you know, just to pace things out and allow Philip some time to go do his groceries and things. I wanted to back it up with some ephemera from the period to really like ground the characters and make you feel like they genuinely existed in this period. So I have above my head folders full of all the press clippings for Cud, and I went through the period, and I've been online and looking for reviews of these bands from the era. And so I've styled features and interviews based on the New Musical Express, Melody Maker, Reflex magazine, Spin, things like that, and written them in the style of the journalists at the time. Yeah. So and also they're quite mean to GEEZER.
Yes.
So it's part of this thing with Philip wearing Clobber and I'm wearing GEEZER. So you've got like a Blur Oasis thing playing off. So the music press love Clobber. These are like, you know, these are the guys they all care about. GEEZER, you know, less so. They're not very good.
They're basically the same band. They're like, there's very little difference musically.
Yes, but it's lovely to have a rivalry there, and we make it even worse by having the attractive drummer from GEEZER dating the singer from Clobber.
Right.
So it makes the rivalry more extreme. And if you know anything about Britpop, you will know there is some of that went on during the Britpop period with Brett Anderson, the singer from Suede's girlfriend, Justine Frischmann, who then went and formed Elastica, dating Damon, the singer from Blur. So there was a real kind of hatred there going on. It wasn't just about competition between the bands. It was just like they just didn't like each other. So
perfect fuel for those feuds.
Yeah, so we have a bit of that kind of rivalry going on in our band in GEEZER.
Nice. All right, we have a question here from Dave Turbot. He says, "Hi, Philip and Will. Love the book."
Hi,
question
Dave.
for Will. Was the name Clobber inspired by the band Menswear? Also, when you write the lyrics that feature in the book, do you also write the music? Oh, that's an interesting question. Like, are you thinking
two very good questions? Yes. Yeah. Well, there were a lot of bands around at the time that were named after fabrics. Like there was suede, denim, corduroy. Who else?
Well, it looks like are you looking up, Googling them? It's like amazing.
That just came out my head.
Wow. Well, also there was a lot
I know them all. Felt,
like something syllables, something
pre-Britpop,
Sleeper and bands like that. You know, the Sleeper, Menswear. It was like, so it was part of that rhythm. Both GEEZER and Clobber just came straight into my head and just seemed perfect. And I did have to, like you have to nowadays, I had to do some search online, and I was astonished that there weren't already quite successful bands with those names already. Although there was one in the States called GEEZER, and we play off that in this issue because just as Suede and the Charlatans had to change their name when they went to the States because they were already an American established band, GEEZER have to be called London GEEZER. So they don't get mixed up with American GEEZER, the originals.
Who are a heavy metal band.
Yes, the way Philip draws them is fantastic. I love that picture. We will share it at some point. I can't wait. But as for Menswear, certainly all their existence and their story kind of comes into GEEZER as well. And curiously, with Menswear, I would mention them that they've been lovely in terms of GEEZER, and the singer Johnny Dean has been in touch and shared some of the promotional stuff that we've done for GEEZER, and Matt Everett, the drummer, has also been appraised us and backed the comic as well. So it's fantastic. It's gone down well with them.
Nice.
The other question about the music.
Yeah.
Some of the lyrics I've written, I do have a kind of rhythm in my head how they go, but there isn't actually any music written for those lyrics. Although I have tried to write some tunes that fit with the lyrics, and also I'm trying to write some tunes and some lyrics to go on top of it for GEEZER. Like I wrote the music for the video.
Oh yeah.
That goes out with GEEZER 2 right now, and I would like to do something with that and write some lyrics, though I'm not convinced it's particularly Britpop in style.
I will say the lyrics are excellent. I mean, they're just like hilarious. They're so Britpop. So like anyone who's reading the book, like don't skip over that stuff because it's like just brilliant.
I feel like Britpop has its sound so ingrained in people that you read them and it's like right in there, and you're like,
Well, I think it was as much with the subject matter with Britpop. I think that we hear that in the lyrics, definitely.
Yeah, some of the lyrics are kind of like slightly taking the piss about out of other Britpop bands, a little bit sarky or sarcastic about other characters in the Britpop world, written from the perspective of Martin, the singer, who was like maybe annoyed with other characters.
Right.
And there's also all those kind of cliches about London living and romanticizing working class living in council blocks that Suede did. You know, it's like the drugs and the poverty is like, oh, it's so beautifully romantic.
That's perfect. Philip, how much of your own experience do you bring in when you're drawing these things? Like, really, like, is it easy for you to find yourself in this world and show it off? Or
yeah, it is really, yeah. These are the kind of people who just like live in my head all the time anyway. And that's the way they dress, and that's the way they talk and act. And yeah, I think that was, you know, like really sort of as much as the 80s were sort of very formative, that like that 90s time when, you know, we were sort of like the right age for it, with like left like finishing college, leaving college, and the years after that where it was all just like just total freedom and just being all about sort of like the music and the artwork, and the look and the you know, the kids and the way they dressed, the way we dressed.
And yeah. Did you see Cud a lot back in the day? Did you see Cud a bunch of times back in the day? Were you able to like draw on those experiences?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were sort of like I was saying before. You know, when the times when I was living in the Midlands, I guess, really in England, in Nottingham, and Cud played sort of like all around that area very often. So we'd sort of travel sort of not even very far, but you know, you could go and see bands at like a dozen venues almost within walking distance at the time. So it was really cool.
Nice.
Those were my formative years. Yeah.
And my experience in the 90s was similar. Well, obviously watching bands when I was a student, but then being in a band meant that I was bumping into people who would become part of the Britpop scene. So there's a scene in issue 2 that's just out, where they visit with the band just starting out, and they go to a club called Syndrome on Oxford Street, which I went to several times with the singer from Cud. And you'd meet all the usual suspects like Cass from Senseless Things, Lush, Ned's Tommy Dustbin, all of these bands that were around the same time. And then you go to Underworld in Camden, you'd see the same faces, you'd hear Blur and Suede and Cud played by the DJs. And yeah, so it's weird. We hung out with members of Blur. We went to their backstage parties at gigging Leeds. So there were you know, it was great. It was really friendly, and getting to know them a bit. And but then we kind of went our separate ways, and they became stratospheric. But having that little like knowledge and experience of the early days of Britpop has really helped me ground the story and create it like a band that's wanting to do well in Britpop goes through these steps and meets these bands in these same situations that I did.
I feel like we talked about this a few times early on about how that sort of like being like the also rans, being like the guys who were just there in the background watching the people who were successful just like shoot off into the stratosphere, and sort of like having some kind of relationship with that, some kind of like sort of being okay with that, and just sort of like everybody can't be the number one there. Like there's got to be like a whole bunch of people down here sort of like jobbing away at it and just keeping it going. I think there's something to be said there for just sort of like being okay with not being the number one, you know,
trying to focus on your craft anyway. And
yeah, but if you were there at the time, you didn't want to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, it was like every Wednesday getting the NME and saying, how did this bastard get on the cover? Who have they paid? Who are they sleeping with? You know, single of the week, how dare they? You know, what a bastard review. We will never talk to that person again. I only spoke to him last week in the pub. Bastard. I will say it was a weird thing. It's about being in a band during that whole period, and about the rivalries and jealousies that went on. Now, Cud got back together again about 10 years ago, and what I've got like Heritage Indie, playing the old hits and stuff, and bumping into a lot of the bands from the era again. Everyone's so lovely. There's no jealousy. There's no competition for front covers. Everybody's really nice, complimentary, helpful, share stuff. And it's like, oh God, how different it would have been if we were those people in the 90s.
Letting you know that when you thought they hated you, they were actually like listening to your album on the bus or something like that. And like,
yeah. It's just like, we thought this guy was an arrogant git. He's really nice. So we never spoke to him. We just read the stuff that he said in the press.
Yeah, I think if there's one lesson to be learned from GEEZER, I'd like it to be that. I'd like it to be that with all that competition and stress that you gave each other, it's just like, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
I didn't intend there to be any lessons to be learned from GEEZER.
That's what a great writer does. He uses them unknowingly.
Yep.
All right, we have a question here from Comics Boost. They say hello.
Hi.
Hello, Comics Boost.
The stretch goal.
That's not a question.
No, not yet. The stretch goal for issue 2 on the Kickstarter is an addition of new pages. Were there any sequences or scenes cut for space from the first issue? Any B-side stories that might see the light of day sometime?
Yes. Yeah. By the way, we already smashed that stretch goal. We're already there, so we're already adding page. That was a given anyway. It's so I think. What do we know? I think we're sort of heading for like 40 pages of.
No, we're 40 pages now. Yeah, like the last issue. What we did last issue, we tried to make it fair rather than. I wrote an extra 1-page backup strip. Philip doesn't know this, but I'd like to do the same again. Choose a character, like a side character from the story, and give them a 1-page.
Yes, love that. Yes, I have ideas already.
Oh, good. You want to tell me?
Exclusive.
And also I'd hope that as well Philip can then feel free if there's any scenes where like he's described where there's like 9 panels on a page and 4 characters talking, he can say, just break out a little bit here, maybe just have a
we've already sort of expanded sort of scenes like that, so like things do get a little crammed in places, so we've managed to add a few extra pages there. It gives us that bit of elbow room.
But certainly there, obviously, as Philip said, I worked with Shelley on the script, and she does keep it lean. And there, actually, particularly in issue 2, there were quite a few scenes that were swapped. We wanted more scenes of the kind of like hanging out in New York. I think a lot of that's from her experience of living and working in New York. And so I dropped that in. I can't remember what I swapped for it. I might have nudged stuff to another issue, but there will be scenes that are certain whole scenes which were took out. And at some point, I don't, not necessarily saying that Philip will add them to this issue, but they may come up as extras on the DVD.
Nice.
Yeah. We're going to have we're definitely sort of looking at the remastered version before we've even finished the slimmed down.
Before we've mastered this version.
Before we've even got the radio edit.
Nice. For the 12-inch, that might feature a flexi disc. Recorded cut song.
Oh yeah. Bonus beats. Yeah.
Yes. All right, let's go back over to Abu now. I'm going to ask to unmute you. Go ahead and do that. And
can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Yes. Hi.
Okay. So my question was about to Philip. Your time at Hellblazer. You did a 4-issue miniseries called Bad Blood with Jamie Delano.
Yes.
Can you tell me about your time at Vertigo? during the 2000s and the 90s? Just how iconic was it? And your what was the Hellblazer Bad Blood? How did it occur, that story?
I remember it well. This was one of the things that came up sort of in my. It was like right after I moved out here from the UK and was living in New York at the time, and it was. I'm not quite sure how I think Jamie himself might have asked to have me on it for some reason, but yeah, it was it was like honestly a little tough because I guess like sort of in recent years working on our own stuff as we have been, it sort of you realize how much easier and rewarding comics can be if you just like throw out all the expectations, I think, which was what I really remember of the time was kind of just like meeting everyone's expectations and feeling like what I was trying to do was more than I could do. So I was like trying a little too hard and having a lot of trouble with it. But yeah, it's so much easier just being like just throwing all that out the window and just doing what you want to do like this, really. Yeah,
it was a different style. Your style changed deliberately for Hellblazer.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I just remember it being difficult, and maybe I was like sort of at the time just sort of finding that style that sort of sat between sort of what I felt DC and Vertigo might have been expecting from me and what I was used to doing, just finding that balance there.
Interesting. Nice. All right. Thanks, Abu.
I don't know what else to say about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Sure.
All right. We got a question here in the comments from Dave. Off register says maybe it was your pain in the arse editor that had an effect.
It was a lot of that. Yes, a lot of that. There were
Whatever happened to her? Thankfully, Philip doesn't have that pressure put on him anymore.
No.
All right, we have a question here from Dave Turbot. He says, "Hi, Philip. Working on a comic based so much in the real world, which could be quite restricting in the background settings. What did you do to loosen up your drawings and keep it feeling alive?"
Wow. There's a question.
That's what he did.
Yeah. Just like trace it. Like actually, sort of like I've there are times when you do fall back on just like basically finding some reference and pretty much just tracing it. Yeah. But I find my sort of ethos really with things like that is like the background kind of you have to have that set. You sort of have to have like a really solid set and understand it, sort of the 3 dimensions and the sort of how you get from A to B and where the traffic goes, where the roads are, where like where the windows are, whatever, and sort of like you sort of like really sort of like understand that in 3 dimensions before you sort of like drop your funny little characters in there. So I think sort of like kind of the opposite, kind of like sort of what you're saying about how do you sort of simplify backgrounds. The backgrounds have to be the most complex piece, because it's like that's the piece that really has to work, because when you drop I'm dropping little characters in like that. When you drop your characters in, that sort of dictates where they stand and how they talk to each other.
It's such a trope. Go ahead, Will. Yeah, sorry.
For my part, I actually went back to I went to the Good Mixer in Camden, where it was like the classic Britpop pub, where a lot of the events happened. It was nothing like what I remembered. It's in the same place, but actually the layout was not how I imagined. And I went there, I drank pints and I took photos and sent them to Philip, some of which he used in the layout. But yeah, it's just not how I imagined it was. And there's another venue in the second issue, Syndrome. Now I remember it being like downstairs and dance floor at one end behind, maybe the bar was in the middle, but it's all kind of vague. And no one had mobile phones then, so there's no, there aren't those like photos of just people like, hi, I'm here, and there's Alex Blur just behind me. There's none of that reference available, so you know, someone's probably going to come back and say, hey, you know, in the Syndrome Club, it was only bottled beer, no one had pint glasses, which may be true, but you know, it doesn't matter. It's comics. Have some fun.
Exactly. Here's that page. It's Philip. Your use of tones as well is
the good mixer.
Yes.
Well, thanks. Yeah, the tones was like something that kind of needed to come in, because like working at that scale, when there's so much on a page like that, you need to sort of like get a little bit of sort of be able to push some stuff into the background a bit more.
Well, and then the texture too adds to like the griminess almost.
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
Philip's balance of black and white in the comics is fantastic as well. It works so lovely in that.
Thank you.
So when we add loads of like color washers in the 12-inch remix, it's gonna really spoil it.
Can't wait.
Yeah. We'll just like feed it into an AI machine, and it'll come out in like horrible color. Everything looks nice and slimy.
I love how too you dropped in this type of thing too, which is like a lyric sheet, a handwritten something. Here's I have a really good question in the chat here. It's for Will, and it's from Shelly, and this is just, I have no idea where it's coming from. This is not, I wouldn't have thought she would ask something like this. How tall is Brett Anderson?
I think I don't think he's that tall. I would say he's about 5'7".
Yeah, in heels maybe.
Yeah, I think he wears high heel, but he also he looks particularly small because he's got Matt Osman on bass, who's like a giant.
Oh right.
So the whole band looks small.
Well, the guitarist is a tiny little man as well, isn't he?
Who's that? The guitarist?
He's a tiny little fella, isn't he?
Yeah. All of the Britpop players, apart from Matt Osman, were puny.
It's usually the bass players, isn't it? Usually the bass player.
The basses are really long, so they need to be tall to be able to reach the E string. You know, it's like here, you see, if I get...
Oh, here we go.
You see, just to get all the way up there, you have to be like a giant. You know?
Oh, that's true. So let's see. One thing I kind of always wonder about is, you guys said you kind of worked together a little bit at Deadline magazine. Was there any crossover in that period, or was there, you know, or was that magazine a huge part of your guys' upbringing? Like, was there a feature on Cud that maybe like helped the momentum?
Always. There were always features on Cud in Deadline.
Graffiti in the background. But Philip and Glyn came up to Leeds to interview the band for a feature, which was just bizarre. And and then you were collecting toenail clippings, and
that was kind of gross. That was not me.
It was like, it's like here, like you part of the thing is like is initiation kind of thing where you will clip your toenails and put them in here, but you have to sniff from the jar as well.
Oh my
God. But
Deadline, you took us on that underground tour of I don't know, it was like some satanic ritual place.
Yeah, there's a place under the canals in Leeds where you could like sneak in over the rails, and there was a strange place where there was markings on the wall as if some like satanic ritual had taken place there. And Philip's never been the same since.
Yeah,
that's when the art style really changed. some sort of deal
Yeah,
was made?
that's yeah. Oh God, yeah. You should have seen it before that. It was like Sonic the Hedgehog or something. It was like Garfield.
The deadline was great, and it was a lovely kind of friendly atmosphere.
Yeah.
They had they would have social events, and for me, I would obviously go down to Worthing and see the crew around there. I remember one night after a gig that Cud played, I think in Brighton, I popped over and ended up staying up all night helping Jamie Hewlett paint Tank Girl. And then having to go get in the van and then play a gig in London the next day without any sleep, which I can't do that anymore.
Those were the days.
Were you on some of those cassette samplers too? Was that another way a lot of people would be like, oh man, I heard you first on the Deadline cassette sampler or something? Or those cassettes that came with the magazine? Or was that a US thing?
No, it was. No, we did have some, but I don't remember Cud ever being on one. Were you?
I don't know if we were. Maybe it's the kind of thing I would have happily been on.
Yeah.
And then it would have been the record company saying, "Who are Deadline? What's that about?
Right.
How many people buy Deadline?"
Man, it is a collector's dream.
They totally wrecked us.
Yeah.
I blame the record company. We could have been Britpop. We could have been huge.
Oh man. All right. Well, we're kind of nearing the end of our time here. Now, again, one of the main things that we're talking about today is the Kickstarter for issue 2 of GEEZER, which is huge. And it's, let's see, I just brought it up here. We are up to $10,569 raised of the $6,000 goal. So we're way over, but that doesn't mean that you can't get in, because the more people that back it and support it, the more cool shit you guys do, I feel like, as we get to the stretch goals.
For absolutely, yes.
So what else?
We have some planned, yeah. As you say, yes, we can do all that. If we hit 100,000, then this will be gold plated and glitter bomb.
You guys heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when I was making the graphics, you guys said there was some sort of exclusive announcement you guys wanted to make on the show today.
Yeah. Should I? It's very little, really. It's not a big announcement, but we actually,
big fanfare.
Yeah, big fanfare. No, we just wanted to we wanted to make sure that to encourage as many people as we can to sort of get on board with issue 2, which, by the way, as part of the campaign, you can order a copy of issue 1 along with number 2. So don't let the fact that it's number 2 put you off. Also, so we're going to make the digital version of number 1, which is available through our website. So I think until the end of the campaign, we're going to make that a $2 download now.
Nice.
So we're reducing the price of that in order to we want to encourage people to read number 1 and be inspired to get behind number 2.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just like selling drugs, giving drugs away at the beginning.
Exactly.
And then once they're hooked, then we have them for life. It's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, we're trying to get you hooked.
Cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. So as of from about half an hour from now, the download of issue 1 is going to be $2 on the off-register website, which is offregister.press.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's
cheaper than a coffee.
So good, guys. You got to get it. All right. We do have, do you guys have time for 1 or 2 more questions? Looks like some people are going in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Cool. All right. So we got one more from Dave here. He says,
Dave again.
He has got some great questions.
Oh, so full of questions. Dave, such a curious person.
This is a good one too, though.
DM me, Dave.
He's asking, what comics or books are you guys reading right now, or any recommendation?
Wow.
Well,
I'm going to let Will take this.
I don't live anywhere near a comic shop, which is kind of problematic. So I mean, by the time I get the comics, they're already in bound edition. So I'm going to be. This is one of my next reads here.
Oh yeah.
Ram and Philippe's wonderful Layla Star. By the time I got the first issue, it was like the third printing or something, and then I never got a chance to buy the rest. So I loved it. Want to get back to that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
I've
book.
just been reading. Where is it? This by Paul B. Rainey, which is an amazing graphic novel. It's been really well reviewed. It's on. It's I think is it? Yes, it's by Drawn and Quarterly. It's a strange kind of book in that it's written like a daily strip, and it tells first it's about bad parenting, but then there's sort of twists about 3/4 of the way through that gives it an amazing kind of depth and turns things around. But yeah, it's beautifully written, and I'm still kind of affected by the way it ends. So that's called
oh, wow.
Why don't you love me?
Sorry, good.
So that's what I've been
now
reading. And I read loads of because my day job, GEEZER isn't my day job, is lots of like writer for hire. So I'm just reading lots of books about fossils right now.
That's awesome. What about you?
Don't ask me what I've been reading. I
Ghost Agents or anything?
Other than Ghost Agents, I haven't read anything in ages other than my GEEZER scripts and whatever Shelley lays in front of me. It says, "Can you check this?" Oh my God! Now I've got a huge pile of books just like waiting to be read, and it'll happen one day. But right now, it's GEEZER.
Yeah, we love it. I love that answer because I can't wait to read more of GEEZER, honestly.
Me too. I like that. Like, really, that's why we're doing it. We're not
like they say, make the comics you want to read. Huh?
I can't imagine doing anything other than this. I don't want to do anything other than this. This is just fantastic. Like, as soon as we're done here, I'm back in there. I've got some inking to do. And by the way, we're gonna if you're gonna follow the campaign or like anywhere on the social media, there's gonna be some process pieces coming up this week. We have some really cool news about the upcoming stretch goals as well. We have some cool ideas there as well.
Awesome.
That's part of the fun of it being on a Kickstarter campaign, is that we can drop these kind of news and bring people in. So it's not just give us your money and we'll see you in 3 months time.
Right.
It's like, we're doing this is what we're doing, and give us your feedback.
Right. And you can see the project grow and change, and your influence on it to make it
and we have to prove that we're actually making it too.
Yeah. All right, we do have another question here from Abu, who wants to know.
Is it from Dave?
No, it's from Abu.
It's Abu.
Yeah,
it's
but
Abu.
He wants to talk about Vinomarama.
Oh God.
Vinomarama.
Okay.
Where you? Oh, he left, or he got kicked out. Okay, so maybe he'll be back to ask. We were talking a little bit about this question from Geeky Broomy. They're asking about what are the chances of
Geeky Brummy. It'll be Brummy.
Geeky Brummy. He's a Brummy.
Okay. He's asking, or they're asking if there are any chances for an actual GEEZER vinyl 7-inch or even a cassette. We were chatting a little bit about that, but what do you think?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The synergy is too strong.
Yeah. There has been talk about this, and both me and the guitarist from Cud, who's our main songwriter, he's almost the entire songwriter, been working on tunes that we think that could be GEEZER tunes. We have a singer in mind, and we hope it will come to be. It's very slow progress. But yes, we would like this to happen at some point during the campaign, not necessarily issue 2, but down the line.
Nice.
I think part of your problem there is figuring out what Britpop actually sounds like, because it was just like all over the place,
like,
isn't it?
There is so many songs, but then I have to think about like GEEZER as well, because like at the very beginning, GEEZER in my head are trying to mimic Suede, then they become Blur, then they become Oasis. So it can be any of those kind of like sounds.
But you don't think Cud has an influence because it's not like really Britpop like you said before?
I think there's always going to be a bit of Cud.
Yeah,
if me and Mike are writing the tunes, then yes, it will sound like it. I mean, I wrote the music for the video for 2, and I personally don't think it sounds very Britpop. It just sounds like Cud to me. So that's what just comes out.
All right, let's try to go back to Abu if you're still there. I will ask to unmute you now.
Okay, I'm here.
Gotcha.
My question was about Grant Morrison's Vimana Rama, a 3-issue mini series that you did with Philip. What was the influence behind the 3-issue mini series? Was it the Indian community in the UK, or their culture, their British Indian culture?
It was, yes, entirely. And like, since you bring it up, I mean, like, obviously, I really think if it came around again today, I mean, like, you would absolutely go for an Indian artist. Like, I feel a little bit, so I feel a little bit strange about that one, because I feel like I should have been, somebody else should have got that job. But it was such a cool job. I mean, like, sort of the way Grant sort of originally sold it was like sort of ancient Indian. Hello? And are you getting interruptions here?
I got it. Yeah.
All right. No, it was basically sort of like the idea of sort of ancient Indian gods, drawn by Jack Kirby in Bradford in England. So it was like this sort of like just this fantastic mishmash, and it was just like, absolutely, I'm all over that. Yeah.
Was it also British music, British Indian music influenced you in Indian Bhangra, Punjabi?
Yes, yeah. I again at the time, let's see. Actually, just before that, really, a few years before that, at the time I was living in the Midlands in England. We were sort of like very much in a very mixed community. There was a lot of Indian and Pakistani and people from like everywhere. It was like, so I felt like sort of I had been immersed in it a little, and I sort of understood it and enjoyed it enough to like really get into it. But again, I feel like somebody else should have been doing that job. I don't like how you feel about this now. I mean, you're obviously.
I loved your interpretation. I loved your interpretation.
Thank you.
It actually felt like Gurinder Chadha's films, for Bend It Like Beckham, all those British Indian films. It reminded me of that, and you did a very good job. Good job representing that.
Thank you. That's a relief, actually. Yeah,
huge fan.
There's a subject to follow up there. Really, I like I say, I feel like somebody else should have been doing that. It would have been a different book. It would have come from a different angle, and it would have been
authentic in a way. Authentic, done by an Indian artist.
Yeah, but because it was all these different influences. Like I say, it was not just this sort of like the Indian gods, the ancient gods, but it was the Kirby thing as well, and it was sort of based in Northern England as well. So it was all stuff that I really enjoyed.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Artist.
Thank you. Wow, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Abu. That's great. Such a good book. Yes, everyone should definitely check that one out. Absolutely, so good. All right. Any final things you guys would like to say? Any other plugs we can make, Philip or William?
Well, yes, obviously. Someone hopefully will share the link and people can check out GEEZER. They can obviously get issue 1 super cheap if they love it.
Yes.
We will be announcing a new stretch goal very shortly. I haven't decided what it is. What is it, Philip? Do we know?
The new stretch goal. Oh, we talked about it a couple of days ago.
Yeah, is it that one or is it a different one?
It might be that one. I think the one we talked about might be sort of like a big stretch goal. That might be like the 15,000. I think we're gonna get somewhere in between. Okay, so
it's the other one. It's the other stretch goal we'll be doing.
It's the other one. The one we didn't talk about. Yeah, that one.
The other one.
Yeah. Please follow us on social media because we will be bombarding you with GEEZER stuff over the next 26 days, and then we'll sleep for 24 hours and just finish the bloody thing.
Disappear until you see the book.
Awesome. And then keep up with the offregister.press website too to get your super cheap $2 version of GEEZER issue 1 if you don't already have it.
Yeah.
I will actually mention if you're going to off register, not that I benefit from it, while you're going there to get your GEEZER 1, do check out the other product by they've got a range of delightful graphic novels and prints and hosiery.
Yes.
Hosiery.
There's a ton of creators in here. I mean, a lot of our audience is creators. So if you don't have Filth and Grammar, if you don't have some of those other
you did have that. Absolutely get Filth and Grammar.
Yes, absolutely. A shout out to old friend of y'all's, Matthew, who said, great talk. Good to hear about it all from you both.
Great to see Matt.
Matt. Hopefully we'll get to see you in Britain at a convention or something before long. And Matt is working on Foo Action, if you're not aware of that. Which is
as I was last year.
Yes.
Yes, Matt and I worked on Foo Action, which was coming up from Z2 this year, which is a reprint a collection of the stuff Jamie Hewlett did in the Face magazine in around the same time, around that 90s Britpop time. In fact, there were a few famous faces appeared in that strip as well.
Oh, there's a link.
There's a link.
Yep, there's a kind of a link there. Yes. So I worked I did quite a bit of work with Matt last year on this upcoming treasury of Foo Action.
Which is why GEEZER 2 is taking a bit longer.
It did push GEEZER 2 back just a little bit, yes.
But no harm's done. And all the best to Matt.
Oh, he says sorry.
Foo Action. That's great.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us on another Kickstarter Kickstart.
You're welcome.
Please do go follow us. And as always, don't just read more comics, be more comics.